Hi everybody. So my project is on my Uncle Mike, as you can see by the title. He's the dude right there with the throwback Johnny with Jets jersey number 12 in the top left corner. That's my Aunt Jody on the right, and this little dude right here in the bottom is my cousin Christian. I love them all very much. So some background on my uncle. He was born on April 17th in 1976, and he was born with the birth defect known as spina bifida. That's when your spinal cord doesn't fully enclose when you're born. So growing up with the spina bifida wasn't a fun time for my uncle. He told me in the interview that his mom had to come to school when he was a kid in grammar school. His mom had to come to school about 2 to 3 times a day to bring a change of clothes because he kept wetting his pants because he didn't have any control of his bladder muscles. Um, because of that, he had to get surgery at the age of 10 in order to correct the problem. And after he had surgery, he was left without use of his bladder muscles until this day. So without the use of his bladder muscles, he was forced to learn how to use a catheter at the age of 10. So growing up trying to use a catheter while also being in constant pain, which he also told me in his back and abdomen area, it just was a struggle for him to grow up. Doctors then started to put him on prescription medication to help deal with the pain, but it just wasn't helping and it wasn't enough, and the problems grew worse and worse. And if his problems weren't big enough already, it also doesn't help that he is a Mets and Jets fan, which is a pretty rough life on its own. So usually after a loss on Sunday, I get asked why I became a Jets fan, and here's the reason right here. In that picture, my uncle is the reason why I became a Jets fan. That was us at a game when the Jets played the Packers. My uncle's been a big part of my life. He took me to my first Jets game when I was about 7 years old, and we've gone every year since. So not only is he my uncle, he's also like one of my best friends. We suffer together. So this was at our most recent Jets game versus Seattle. This is this year. Of course they lost, but I just wanted to say that the team's not that good. But me and my uncle have a tradition that we started since when he took me to my first game when I was a little kid, and we have not missed a Jets game since. So we've watched every game Monday, Sunday, and Thursday night ever since that time I took him to my first game, and we're hoping to continue that tradition on for as long as he's healthy. So this is me, my uncle, and my other cousin Antonio at my high school graduation a couple years back. My cousin on the right is now an Army Ranger, and my uncle's just very proud of his two nephews from what I've accomplished in school and how far I've gotten, and where my cousin is now in his military standing. So he's just a very proud uncle. So in about 1998, that's when things started to get pretty bad for my uncle. He started to develop kidney stones, and with the inability to use his bladder muscles, he couldn't pass those stones normally. Right here is an image of his kidney, and as you can see, the one on the right with that big white ball thing, that's a kidney stone. And he told me in the interview that it took about 2 to 3 surgeries to remove the stone because it was almost the size of an apple. Um, Doctors also thought that he was going to need his kidney removed because it had been so blocked off from the stone that it was almost left non-functioning. But luckily, that didn't have to happen. He was able to keep his kidney. So this gnarly looking thing right here in his arm is a PICC line that my uncle had to have put in shortly after his surgery because he kept developing infections and needed to have antibiotics pumped into him constantly in order to prevent the infections from occurring. Here's my uncle and Christian in the hospital after a surgery, getting ready to be discharged and getting ready to go home. So even after the surgery, my uncle was still having a lot of pain, and the pain pills that he was being prescribed were not helping. So my uncle went to his doctor seeking an alternative, and the doctor recommended that my uncle try out medical marijuana since it had just become legal in the state of Connecticut in 2014. So right here in this picture is what my uncle actually uses. This is THC oil. He gets it and he puts it in a pen, and it's like a vapor that he uses, and it helps him with all of his pain and all of his ailments and everything. And in the interview, he told me that medical marijuana saved his life. So here's another product that my uncle uses. This is a cannabis lotion that he puts on his back to help with the back pain of his spina bifida. And see, it's a big stipulation that people just use medical marijuana just to get the high. Now that could be true in some sense, but these people are not using it for the high that a teenage boy with his friends is trying to use it for. A person using medical marijuana, like my uncle, are trying to experience the high that will take their pain away, that will get them through the day, that will help them cope with whatever ailment they have. Medical marijuana has healing properties in it that, when used correctly, can be very beneficial to the human body. In the interview, my uncle told me how difficult it is to use medical marijuana in today's society because you're labeled as a pothead if you do. This has caused some debates in my family because not everybody in my family believes in medical marijuana. But in the end, all that I think is important is that my uncle is happy and healthy.